Hi, hello. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have a super fun video today, at least fun for me anyway. I'm going to be talking about my top 20 books of 2020, which, my god, it has been definitely one hell of a year, we can say that, but at least with graduating and COVID and whatnot, I had lots of time to read this year, so lots of different options for me. It was really hard to narrow this list down actually, and so I have like books scattered all over my desk right now, so bear with me while I go through those. And actually there are a bunch on this list that I don't have physically with me because I've lent them to other people because they were so good, but I do have most of them. So I'm gonna just try and jump straight into things and not talk about one book or each book too long, just because there are so many and I don't want this video to be like an hour long. But so I guess I will just start off with my absolute favorite of the year. Although, okay, I don't want to say absolute because there were so many great books this year, and this list is in no particular order, by the way. But this was one of the few books that I literally, as soon as I started reading it, like I could not put down. I was just obsessed. And it is Normal People by Sally Rooney. I know this is a super popular book and it definitely didn't come out in 2020. These are just all the books that I read in 2020. And I remember reading it in the spring and I read it in like a couple hours. It was just so good. Really heartbreaking, but loved this book, and coincidentally I read it like pretty much right before the TV show came out, and the TV show was also really good. I thought it followed the book pretty closely, so I was super happy with that. And yeah, I feel like you've probably heard a lot about this book, so I'm not going to go on for too long, but it was definitely probably in my top 3, if not top 2 books this year. And the next book, or I guess I'll maybe just kind of talk about them at the same time because they're by the same author, but the next 2 books I'm going to talk about is The Marrow, Thieves and Empire of Wild by Cherie Dimaline. And I loved these books so much. I actually read The Marrow, Thieves first. It was assigned for one of my classes in the winter semester, and this was another one where I picked it up and couldn't put it down. It was so good, and I feel like this was kind of one of the ones that sort of introduced me to like indigenous science fiction kind of post-apocalyptic literature, which I feel like is so cool and so interesting. And yeah, this book is severely underrated. It also gets classified as a kid's book in some lists, but I do not think that it is a kid's book. Like, I think that people of like any young adult would enjoy reading this book, even regular adults do. I feel like it just had such a great premise, and the characters were you just got so attached to them, and yeah, this was a great book. So then after I read this, I had to pick up Empire of Wild, which it might have come out this year. I can't actually remember. Oh, okay, the copyright is for 2019, but I read it this year. It was so good. I actually, even though I didn't technically read it for school, I ended up using it in one of my essays just because like there's so much usable content, so much good stuff in here. Cherie Dimaline is an amazing writer. This one I would say is, she said, more geared towards adults, I think. But yeah, which I could definitely see. But it's just so cool to see like stories that are set in Canada and written by Indigenous authors. I believe she's Métis. But yeah, just such a cool, fun, dark story to read. So that was another favorite. The next book that's on my favorites list is The Lonely Hearts Hotel by Heather O'Neill. And this book definitely did not come out this year. I don't know when it came out, but it had been on my list for a while, and I actually got it for Christmas a few years ago, and then just kind of forgot about it and never picked it up. But this is a really cool story. I feel like it reminds me a lot of The Night Circus, which is one of my favorite books of all time. It kind of has a similar plot of like the star-crossed lovers and sort of whimsical writing, and it's set in Montreal. And it was really good. It was sad definitely at times, and I should put a warning for sexual abuse in here because there is a bit of that at some points, but yes, this was a really good read. Another one that I couldn't put down. I think I read it maybe in like a day and a half or two when I was up north this summer, and yeah, it was definitely a page turner, but a warning about some mature themes in here, I would say. I'm just trying to look at all the books I have here. I also have a list on my computer of my favorite books that aren't presently with me because they're with friends or family, but so I'll maybe go through those at the end. But okay, I'm just gonna grab one. This next book, The Inconvenient Indian by Thomas King. I read this, I think, in the spring, and oh my god, it was so good, so informative, and just packed full of history and important conversations about racism and discrimination, and just, yeah, I have been a huge fan of Thomas King's writing ever since I read Green Grass Running Water a couple years ago. And this is nonfiction, but it was still a really compelling read, and I think a really important read for anyone. It's called A Curious Account of Native People in North America. So anyone in North America, you should read this book because it's just really interesting and I think important to read. But yeah, so basically I've loved everything of Thomas King's that I've read, and I'm super excited because his newest fiction book is on my bookshelf in my to read list, so I'm really excited to get to that one. But yes, this was definitely a really important read. It did take me a little while to get through just because it was nonfiction and a lot of the topics were kind of hard emotionally to get through. But I think this is a good read for a more kind of comprehensive, I don't necessarily want to call it a historical account, and I think it's interesting that he calls it a curious account because like, so many biases in history, I don't want to get too much into it, but yeah, anyways, this was in my top books. I have to remind myself not to ramble about things, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, my next book is, and I talked about this in my last book video, so I won't talk about it too much now, but it's Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, and the quote on the front of it is, "A symphony of black womanhood, her language spills over the page," and I feel like that really encompasses I don't want to say the theme or the essence of this book, I would say. It was really long, so it did take me a little while to get through, but it was just so well written and really masterfully intertwined, like all the characters and everything. But so yes, really enjoyed this book. Next one. I'm losing track of the numbers that I've gone through, so I'm just gonna go for it. But it was A Man Called Ove, and this is a really cute story. At first, I wasn't super into it. Like I think it takes you a little while to get into like the writing style of it, or at least it did for me, but it was by the end a pretty heartwarming and a bit sad story. I feel like this is kind of the grown-up book version of Up, like the Pixar. Is it Pixar film? I don't even know. I think Pixar. But yeah, it definitely was an interesting one, and yeah, by the end of it, I was a little bit teary-eyed, not gonna lie, and that doesn't happen to me a lot with books, but that was also a solid one. Next up on the list is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer, and this book was assigned to me for class, and I wasn't super into it at first because I'm not really usually a huge like sci-fi kind of fan, but this book actually turned out to be really cool and honestly kind of confusing. I think it just maybe went over my head a little bit, I don't know, but I did really like the way that this book played out, and I guess it's this is only the first book of the trilogy. I never read the other two books, but yes, I feel like if you're just trying to get into sci-fi or if you like sci-fi, this would be a good one to check out. I saw the movie for this because I was curious afterwards, and the movie really did not do it justice, I thought. I thought that they changed a lot of things from the book that I wasn't super happy about. But yeah, the book is good. The next book on this 2020 list is Moon of the Crusted Snow, and I read this in the summer, and it's definitely a quick read. Like, it's not a very long book, but it was so good. And it was maybe not the greatest time to read a book like this because it's kind of like society descending into chaos, like something's happened, and it was just very reminiscent of like what was going on like in the world currently, and it's also set like in Ontario, so which is where I live, so that was super creepy, but it was still so good. I really enjoyed reading this, and I feel like I kind of, even though it's creepy, I kind of like reading books like that because it's just like sort of the what if, and it's just like comparing it to like what was actually happening, and it was eerily accurate just with the society's reactions to everything. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this book if you're into like apocalypse, society crumbling, that kind of thing. And it's also by an Indigenous author too, who I follow him on Twitter, and he has really good tweets too, so look out for that. This book I was so excited to read because it's by one of my favorite authors, and her first book, The Night Circus, you can probably guess which book I'm going to talk about now, but is just one of my all-time faves. Like, I love her writing. It's just so whimsical and fun and cool. But so I was majorly excited to pick up this book. It's the Starless C. I don't have the book cover for it because I always just, I don't know, I hate book covers on hardcover books. Maybe that's just me being weird, but they just always look so much prettier like without them, and this book is really cool, like with the black and gold. Anyways, so I was super excited to read this book because I love Erin Morgenstern's writing. And it was really good. I feel like I felt a little bit let down just because I love The Night Circus so much that like any story, like I don't think any story could really live up to it, but I thought that this was a really good second book for her. At least I think she only has two. I don't know. But I did love this book, and I loved the writing, and the story was really cool. The only thing for me, it was a little bit long. I'm not really one to read like the super long books or anything, but I can't remember how many pages. It was at least 500. But so it took a little bit to get through, especially because it was more of a kind of slow burner like thing that, you know, by the end of it everything comes together. But yeah, it was definitely took me a while to get through, but so worth it. Such a great story, and a good follow-up to The Night Circus, although I don't think anything will compare. Who knows, we'll see. The next book on my list was actually another one that I had to read for school, but I really was surprised by this one. I didn't imagine that I would enjoy it as much as I did, and it's The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro, hopefully I pronounced that right, who is the author of Never Let Me Go, which I feel like is a really popular book within like the literary community and whatnot. And I read that one too actually recently, after I read this one, and I actually liked this one better. It kind of had like Downton Abbey vibes-ish, but it was for my 20th century literature class, and yeah, it was really good. Like, his writing is amazing, and you just really got lost like in the mind of the main character. Now I'm blanking on his name. I feel like it was Mr. Stevenson or something like that. Mr. Stevens. Yeah, I feel like there are so many books out there and my memory is just not good. So like, I know that I like this book, but yeah, I can't remember the name of the main character apparently. But no, it was really good. And this was, hopefully I'm not butchering my explanation here, but there's kind of like a theme in British literature of like the Great House novel, like talking about like all these massive mansions or whatever that were like big and like in the 1800s kind of, and like before, and it's kind of just like, this is sort of showing like the collapse of that and like how the decline in like the Great House era and that like really upper class sort of vibe. Oh my god, I don't know. My brain has turned to mush after leaving school. But anyways, this was real good. And definitely if you are a fan of Downton Abbey or just British literature in general, go for it. But yeah, I feel like that was his less popular one, but I liked it better. Switching up the tone a little bit here. I actually don't usually read these kind of books that often, just because they're not usually my thing. But this one was actually pretty good. It was The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, and it's kind of like a mystery. I don't know if I would call it a thriller, but like sort of a murder mystery. I don't want to give too much away because there's like certain details that it would just kind of ruin the whole story. But this was really good, and I normally don't like these kind of like whodunit novels or whatever, but this one, yeah, this one was one that I did end up reading pretty quickly, just because you kind of want to know what happens. And there was a little bit of a twist at the end too that I did, well, not the very end twist, but there was a second twist that like I did see coming, but it was just interesting like to see it play out and everything. But then the twist at the very end, I didn't know how I really felt about, and I'm not going to give anything away because I hope people read this book. I don't want to do spoilers, but yes, if you're looking for a mystery, this one is really cool. The tower of books next to me is growing and I'm scared it's gonna collapse. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Only a few more left. This next book I read a while back, and actually one of my roommates had recommended it to me because I think that they had to read it for a class. And it was When They Call You a Terrorist. I don't know if it's gonna focus or not. It's a memoir from one of the creators of the Black Lives Matter movement, and this book was so good. It was so important, and it talks about so many pressing issues right now, like obviously race and mental health and just so many other things that like was just really, it was really difficult to read, but that's, I feel like, when you know that like you're talking about important things especially. But yes, this was really good. It was really well written. It was just so interesting to hear about her story and what led her to kind of like be involved in founding the Black Lives Matter movement and all that jazz. But yes, this was so good. This one would be probably one of my top like recommend to people books, just because, I mean, obviously it's topical now, but like racism has been a thing for centuries. So, but anyways, this was a really good book, and I also follow her on Instagram too, so I get a lot of good content from there also. And the next two I'm gonna kind of do together because they're in a series, and I might have talked about these in my last video, but I can't remember. It's the Trickster Series. Trickster Series by Eden Robinson. The first one is Son of a Trickster, and then Trickster Drift is the second one. And hopefully the third one will come out this year. I'm not sure when it's gonna come out. It's just supposed to be a trilogy, but I motored through these books so fast. They were so good. Eden Robinson's writing is incredible. Her other book, Monkey Beach, is also really good too. And I can't remember if I read that this year or last year, so I didn't include it in this list. But actually, I kind of think I did read it this year. Anyways, well, so that's another one. Maybe we have 21 books to talk about. But yeah, these were just so good. If you're looking for some indigenous magic, sci-fi kind of scary stuff, this is really good. And it's also just kind of like contemporary style writing too, which I loved. But yeah, and the TV show, apparently the TV show is going through a lot of controversy right now, which really sucks because obviously like these are such good books and so many amazing people worked on the series. I personally, I mean, I'm only up to episode 4 right now, and I've been kind of procrastinating watching it because I feel like they changed like a lot of it from the book. Maybe that's just me. So I haven't been as like, oh my god, I need to watch this right now kind of thing, but hopefully I will finish the TV show this year so I can give a more well-formed opinion of it. But I would definitely, as of now, recommend the books over the TV show. But still really cool to have the TV show too, especially because it's all sort of like indigenous artists and actors and creators working on it. Sorry, so now I've got my list on my computer for the last couple books that I don't have physically with me because I've lent them to people, but they still deserve to be on the top 20 books of 2020. And this one called The Break by Katherena Vermette, I think is how you say her name. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing it. Was genuinely so good. Like I can't even begin to describe how good this book was. I think this would be in my top 2 with normal people. The author is Métis, which is really cool, but just the story was so heartbreaking but also heartwarming at the same time. Like you could really just feel there was so much love went into writing it, and the love between all the characters and everything just was really special to read. And I feel like you don't always get that when you're reading books, just that connection and that like the overwhelming feelings that you get while reading the book. But it was also like really difficult to read too because there's I should say a warning, there's a lot of talks a lot about like sexual violence and sexual assault and that kind of realm, which can be a lot for some people, and it was really hard to read. But I think the reason that this book was so beautiful is because amidst all those moments you could just see like the strength of all the women in the book and the strength of like the familial connection and ties. And yeah, it was just a really beautiful story, and I wish that I had the physical copy here with me, but I lent it to a family member, so hopefully they're enjoying it too. Hopefully they read it. But yeah, that was probably in my top 2 books this year. This next book is called Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, and this is another one from my 20th century literature class that I took in my last semester of school, which is like weird to say. But and this was another one that I was really surprised that I liked it so much, because I kind of went into class thinking like this is gonna be so boring. But no, like they actually had really great works for the most part. Like I don't think there was really any text that I didn't like so much, but this one stood out to me a lot. It kind of had that I don't know if people have read the book Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. Like the relationship between the 2 main characters in that one reminded me a lot of Brideshead Revisited, so I wonder if the author of Carry On had read Brideshead Revisited, because it obviously came out way later that Brideshead Revisited did. How many times can I say that? But anyways, it was really good. This was another one of the kind of great house novel, like in decline and like the decline of the upper class sort of situation in Britain and I guess Europe by extension. But it was really good. The writing was really cool, and I actually read this while I was on February vacation before the pandemic hit, which is like so weird. But I remember being like on the beach and just flipping through like all the pages. I was really surprised at like actually how much I liked it. But yeah, so if you're into that kind of vibe, definitely check it out. So the next book that I don't have here with me but was also really great was Three Women by Lisa Taddeo. It is basically what the title is. It follows the story of three women and kind of like their lives, their sexuality, and it's just, and their relationships and all that jazz. And it's just was really well written, and it's cool that it's actually based on like real people's lives. I think Lisa Taddeo was maybe some sort of journalist or whatnot. But I read it a while ago, so I don't remember all the details of it, but I remember, again, reading that one super fast, and which I feel like is a sign that you like that book. But so I lent that to one of my friends a couple days ago, so I don't have it with me now. But that one was also a highlight of this year. Another book that is not in my current possession is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. I don't actually know where this book went. I think it was my mom's book that I maybe borrowed or something. I don't know. But this book actually, it surprised me. It was really good. It was kind of like a romancy, but like not at the same time. With like a little bit of crime in it too, which was kind of interesting. And I feel like this book was on maybe Reese Witherspoon's book club or Oprah's book club. I can't remember exactly, but it was like huge. I remember earlier this year and kind of before. So I finally read it sometime this summer, and yeah, it was really good. I think I read it in like a few hours. But I wasn't a huge fan of the ending. I don't want to give anything away. I don't know. I just kind of felt like a little bit of a letdown. But I definitely enjoyed that one, and it was nice to have a little bit of a change of pace. But I'd be interested to see, I think they're making a movie out of it or a TV show. So we're interested to see how that adaptation compares. And moving on, this is the last book. Oh my god, I feel like we just talked about so many books, but the last book that was in my top 20 of 2020 is The Skin We're In by Desmond Cole. And again, I don't have this book because I lent it to someone, just because I feel like everybody should read this book, especially Canadians. I feel like need to read this because it was Desmond Cole. He was a reporter, I think a journalist, and it's basically just talking about racism in Canada, and a lot of it in Toronto, Ontario area specifically, which is where I'm from. And I feel like in Canada, racism really gets shoved down, and like people pretend that it doesn't exist and that it's not a thing, but it's so prevalent in our society. Anyways, basically racism really gets swept under the rug in Canada, and people pretend that it's not a problem or that we don't have that kind of thing here, but we definitely do. And I feel like The Skin We're In kind of really shines a light about everything that's been going on here. And I think it was really sad to read, obviously, because you hate to see things like that happening to your fellow Canadians or fellow human beings. So yeah, it was really hard to read. That one I kind of had to read in sections also, just because it was just getting me really emotional and whatnot. But yes, that was definitely probably one of the most poignant, is that the right word, reads of this year. And this was actually another one that my roommate had recommended me, because he actually came to our university to do a talk like right before the pandemic started, And she went to it. I didn't go, but she went to it and she got a copy of the book and said that he was like a great speaker and whatnot. And I think that she read it and loved it. So then I ended up, but then the pandemic happened, so we all moved out, and then I ended up getting it after. But yes, definitely a must read, especially for Canadians, but really anybody in the world could benefit from reading this book. Anyways, oh my god, I'm getting so tired of talking. I feel like we went through so many different books there, but there were really like so many amazing reads this year, and probably a lot of ones that I missed. But it's just getting me really excited now for 2021 reading. I've started a Goodreads goal. Hopefully I can get to the 50 books this year, which I think we can do. I feel like I read a lot this year, so hopefully we can ramp it up even more in the coming months, coming year. But yeah, so stay tuned for more book content because that's definitely coming. I've been reading a lot in the last couple weeks. So yeah, have lots to talk about later. Alright, anyways, I hope that everybody is healthy and safe, and thanks for watching this video. Bye!